Hi everyone, so today on episode 3 of the CP Physiques podcast, we are joined by Sam and Bennett. I'll let Sam introduce himself, how he first got into bodybuilding and things like that.
I'm now 25. I started at 16. I used to work at the original Temple gym, the one Dorian used to own. I started competing myself, first as a natural, and then obviously, went down the assisted route. And since then I've done won titles with NABA, NAC, WABA, quite a few pure elite, and then obviously got involved in coaching as well. And then kind of about 18 months ago now, I set up my own bodybuilding show called the Barbarian Classic, which is like an independent show. We had loads of different classes. There was no membership fees or anything like that. We had Luke Sandow guest posing. And then this year we got the one in November, and we got one in next year as well.
So going right back to the beginning, how did you first get into going to the gym? How do you first get into weight training? And
for me, it was because I was always quite like a heavy set kid. I always loved sports, but I was really into Sylvester Stallone, the Rocky films. I always wanted to look like that, and obviously Arnold in Predator as well. And then started going to the gym probably about 16, and I lost fat, but it was just kind of like an extreme diet. But I had a decent set of arms on me for 16, and I remember doing a show called Muscle Mania. And I only did it with about 6-7 months of training, and I loved it. And then
there was a guy in my old gym who was a pro for that federation. Claimed he was natural, but I think in that fed there's a lot of in that, especially one federation, there's quite a lot of people who are cheating the system compared to other federations.
Yeah, because I did it naturally, because I was only like 16, 17 at the time. But the Muscle Manias, it's like one of those like natural shows. So I'll probably test like a couple, like a urine sample, and they've got their favourites. I mean, as long as you're not obnoxiously like massive, like they won't mind too much.
I think like it's never ever going to be the case where they can test every single person, because you might know yourself, for the cost of having a show, adding the cost of all the pots, tests, it would just be crazy. You'd end up having to pay a lot to compete, because they'd have to charge the fee to get in so high that it would just...
Yeah, I mean, the way I think it's the UK DFA or someone who does this. They test the class winners, and they have a polygraph test, the lie detector. But I mean, for me personally, I always, was into more like the assisted physique look. Although, to tell a lie, I've been training for the last kind of 7-8 months natural, for fertility reasons. But I'm enjoying it now. I've got to admit, I'm not really missing the gear that much.
For me, like, this is going into a bit of a different subject, but for me, like, to go down the assisted route, I'd have to have massive potential to get a protocol to turn it into a career. In terms of just competing on an amateur sort of level, I wouldn't really. For me, it's not a risk worth.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a couple of cycles, 99% will never harm anyone. But the issue is that it can be addictive. Obviously, you can imagine, seeing your bench fly up like 30 kilos in like 6-7 weeks, but I mean, I think part of getting older as well, because I remember I mean, my mindset has changed massively from when I was younger. Like when I was 22, 23, like I look back and I remember how bad I felt during prep, like, being on clenbuterol, which I hate because it always makes me shaky and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just kept pushing it. And now I kind of, now I've, had some time away and stuff. I kind of asked myself, is it worth it? But I mean, for me personally, because my genetics aren't bad, to be fair. I'm never going to be Mr. Olympia, unfortunately. And I mean, my biggest passion is actually football.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to getting my coaching badges done. But I'll probably do one more show.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's that sort of thing where like it's got to be the risk worth taking. There is like, even you can play down that, like getting bloods test, getting bloods done often, things like that, but there is still a risk. I mean, from what I've heard, listening to experts, Dean St. Martin, Broderick Chavez, I think his name is, that like you have to be willing to maybe sacrifice 5 or 10 years off your life.
Definitely. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you're doing steroids for a long
It's
period of
not
time,
short term, it's more long. Like, people think, well, such and such hasn't died and he's been taking it for 2 years, but it's more 25 years.
I mean, that's the way I look at it. So I look at it as if, so I started properly about 20. So 5 years. Well, I'll probably say about 4.5 years on gear. I always said to myself, I'll be done by 30. So, stop kind of competing, still train, stay fit, but obviously stop the anabolics as well. Because the way I look at it, if you're taking steroids for a long term, you are going to lose out on part of your life I mean, even if it's not direct health. So by that, I mean, obviously, your blood pressure can shoot up while you're on cycle, liver, kidney issues. I mean, even the size of your heart can increase, especially on things like growth hormone. But it's more just, I mean, I'll give you an example. So when I was on cycle kind of last year, my heaviest I got up to near about 270 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm about 5'10", so it's not a too bad weight, especially for off season. But I mean, there's some guys who get up to like 300 pound plus, and just walking around at that weight every day is not good for you.
I mean, even I've found as a natural this last off season, I pushed weight pretty high, probably put on a bit too much fat with that. We'll see if it was worth it when I come back down. But going from what on stage I was 116 pounds to 160, even just
Big jump.
going to the shop, going down the street, it was just like the lower back pump, everything. It was just horrendous. I can remember towards the end of my off season, because sort of for the last year I've maintained, done little cuts here and there. I've not really pushed weight. I was still eating oats, and the sweats in the summer was just like horrendous because of the weight plus the heat of the oats. It was just awful.
Yeah, because whenever I'm on gear, I always tend to sweat more as well, because I naturally sweat a lot anyway. So I hate the heat. And literally, I mean, now I've probably dropped down to about, I mean, I'm still quite heavy. I'm in like the 240s probably. Because, when you've trained for so long, you maintain quite well. As long as you kind of eat, the minimum required. Started doing more kind of HIIT cardio, jogging, and I've got to admit, I feel fantastic. So that's kind of in my head, kind of 50-50 whether to go back on or not. So
yeah, I mean, like, the thing that I like as well about the natural side of it, it's like you can still half live a normal life at the same time. So like you don't see many naturals getting on stage every year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If they do, they're not really improving. They're just the same each year. So like for 2 or 3 years in off season, you can sort of live life a bit more normal and things like that. Whereas prepping every single year, yes, naturals prep for longer. So like the enhanced athlete would only prep for what, 12 to 16 weeks?
Yeah, normally, yeah.
But naturals, you're talking 25, 20. Like there's different methods of doing it, but you're talking 26 weeks there.
Yeah.
So you're doing it for longer, but every single year you're having a time where you have to restrict yourself. So it's just interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my first natural diet, I dieted for 6 months. So I think that's 24 weeks.
Yeah.
So I went from quite a heavy weight. I mean, I still wasn't what I'd call stage lean now. I'm 16, it was good. But yeah, I mean, it's funny now because obviously because I've been off stuff for like 7-8 months. I do want to drop a bit of fat at the minute, just like probably about 6 pounds, nothing 6-7 pounds, nothing major. But obviously because previously, I was on growth hormone, had more muscle, obviously high testosterone. Whereas now it's it's not coming up as easy as it used to.
Well, that's it. I mean, like, have you noticed a difference between the rate of loss for natural athletes compared to enhanced athletes?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the main thing that kind of is the main thing with everyone is their genetics. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, I've had natural clients in the past who can drop weight brilliantly and get absolutely peeled. They may struggle to put on muscle as well as kind of other naturals. But I know that for myself, for example, I mean, even like when I was natural, I put on muscle quite easily. But for me, I always struggled to get in condition because the main thing for me was the main thing that I struggled with, was just that kind of last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Even when I was kind of assisted. But it all depends on the metabolism. But definitely when your testosterone levels are higher, for men anyway, you do tend to burn fat better. I mean, for me, I mean, I'll give you an example. This is quite interesting now. When I get my bloods done, and so I came off in December time, and I got my bloods done about 6 weeks ago, 6 to 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And just like a fertility test, that's the main reason I'm off. And my test, I stopped taking HCG, which is used to, restore natural testosterone. Because I'd been using it for a while, but I just gave myself kind of a 3 or 4 week break. And the average man's testosterone is meant to be between, I believe it's 7 to 27 or 9 to 27. And mine was 4.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is crazy considering, I mean, I'm still 240 pounds and still lifting decent weight in the gym, but that drop, considering it used to be, triple figures.
Yeah. I know that's the one thing about being a natural as well. When you prep in the last few weeks, that just gets stupidly low. I know
Yeah.
it was Josh Bridgman, who's now enhanced whilst he was natural. I think he made a YouTube on this in his prep. He had his bloods done and it went low as ever.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's obviously when you're in prep, the body's cortisol shoots up. Because you can imagine the stress you put your body under, especially with extra cardio, little food. And obviously when you're enhanced, you have things that can kind of offset that a bit. But yeah, natural preps aren't the easiest, that's for sure.
Well, that's it. People say that natural preps aren't as dangerous as enhanced, which I can see to an extent, but it takes 6 months to even recover to start feeling normal.
Yeah.
Before you can actually start gaining muscle. Whereas if you're enhanced, I mean, you can do rebounds and things like that and gain muscle straight after.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember Well, it's funny you said, because you are right, because the human body realistically isn't meant to get to, as low as a
Yeah.
body fat percentage as it should. And it'll always take a toll on its body. I mean, the kind of, I've heard counter arguments for, like, obviously, saying assisted bodybuilding, well, prep is harder than natural bodybuilding. The only way I'd agree is the fact, well, I'd only say two reasons why. The first one would be when you take quite a few compounds, it depends on your source, really.
Yeah.
So, I trust the stuff I take. But previously in the past, like, I may have taken, for example, like an Equipose, and it was a Deca, which obviously holds a lot more water and stays in my system quite a while. So, and it's a bit hard with timings as well, like when to drop things, when to keep them in. But I always found what I found the hardest is that you've got these tools available. So, I mean, I remember my natural prep. If I wanted to change something, it would obviously be food or cardio or refeed.
Yeah.
But now, kind of enhanced, you've got things like T3, Clen, small doses of Tren, things you can GH that you can add in, tinker around with. And obviously, bodybuilding is an extreme sport, especially at the higher levels. Like the amount of horror stories I've heard.
I mean, you just have to
especially
look at, I forgot his name now. the Carver.
Yeah, Dallas. Yeah.
2017. What was his first name again?
Oh,
Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dallas.
Like, I think it came out saying he was taking stupid amounts.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's mostly, the weird thing is, I mean, we see obviously the pros kind of dropping down a bit, but it's more the amateurs that die young, because obviously they don't have the actual funds to, get their health properly checked. I mean,
Or even the genetics, they might be pushing it more because
yeah.
they haven't got the genetics to go
Yeah,
that
that's
way.
true as well. Because I mean, the amount of people I see and their cycles, they're on 2 grams anabolics plus a week, 3 grams plus. It's crazy. I mean, one guy because obviously, I mean, I'm young, but I grew up listening to kind of old school bodybuilders, like guys in the 80s, 90s. And Eddie Abu is a guy I really like listening to his views. I went to a seminar of his actually probably about a year ago, and he summed it up brilliantly. If you can't turn pro on less than 1 gram total of anabolics a week, you're not going to be a decent pro. And I gotta admit, I agree with that completely. And I mean, my last cycle was 500 tests, 300 primo. And it was probably the best cycle I've ever done. And previously I'd done more than double that. So you can see the difference.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I mean, more doesn't always mean better, but obviously people will always take more because they think more is better.
Do you have any regrets about the age that you became enhanced or the way you did it?
The only thing I wish I did better was I wish I kind of got my training a bit better before I started. Diet I was always quite good on. I mean, I used to get a bit heavy in the off season, but I like to live as well. But I think the training I could have, because I was literally like a kid in a gym full of guys who seemed like Dorian, Leroy Davis, all those. So I was always quite obsessed with weight, the amount of weight I lifted. And I mean, it got me strong. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, on bench when I was on cycle, I could, do 180 for reps and stuff like that. I mean, I don't deadlift, but I did attempt like a deadlift for the first time in like 2-3 years. And I managed to pull like 280. But now I think my training, because I've had time off, and obviously I know that my strength's going down. I've kind of trained a bit smarter, so I'm probably going to a bit slightly more higher volume than previously, and just knowing when to pull off a bit. Because I mean, my problem was, I mean, it's nature of the beast. If you do 2 reps, you go for a third rep. You always keep pushing, and yeah, that's a bit of stubbornness from my part.
So how would you say your training was when you first began? Was it structured? Was it not structured? What
For me,
was it like?
I've trained a few kind of different methods, but the one I've always preferred is I mean, people call it a bro split, but you know, like well, it's more like a Dorian split. So I do shoulders, triceps, legs, chest and biceps, for example, and then back, 4 days a week. And occasionally I'll up that to 5 if I want to kind of separate my quads and hamstrings.
Yeah,
But I've always done it that way, really, and that's what's got me the best results. Volume wise, I used to train with a lot of volume when I was younger, but now I've kind of cut it down. So for like biceps, I'll probably do about 5 working sets. Shoulders about 8. It all kind of depends, really.
so is that all set to complete fair, like to complete fair?
Yeah. So how I train, how I get my clients to train. Everyone's different. That's my
Yeah,
first rule. Everyone has different, you know. But a method I like for myself, especially, is so I'll give you an example. So from bench press, my first working set would be a heavy set between 4 and 8 reps, and then my second set would be a higher rep set in the 12 to 20 range.
yeah,
12 to 20 reps. And then my third set is kind of like it's more like a kind of a power. So just hold for 3 seconds at the bottom, 3-second negatives. So it's like a time and attention set.
yeah.
And I'll do that for about 8 to 10. And for kind of big compounds, I prefer to do like that method. So whether it's on squats, whether it's on bench, even on, you know, things like rows, like I'll hold the last set. But I mean, it's worked well for me so far. I've just, you know, I've never had any kind of bad injuries. Except from I've got a bit of a shoulder issue. But
I
that's
think
getting better now.
that's the main thing linked with the low volume, high intensity approach.
Yeah.
Probably more so for naturals as well. But I'm guessing even when you're enhanced, you're moving more weight, so that's going to have more fatigue linked with it.
Yeah, I mean, because when I train by instinct. I always have an outline in my head what I'm going to do each session. But obviously, I was really into Sean Ray as well when I was younger,
Yeah,
and guys like Flex Wheeler, and a lot of these guys were instinct trainers. So I'll always kind of keep 2 or 3 movements the same, or I'll alternate them every other week. And then kind of for the rest of the session, I'll just go by what I feel. So, I mean, it works quite well. So, for example, like if I do, obviously with my delt issue, I'll give you an example. Like the machine fly,
yeah.
that was causing me a bit of an issue. Tried 1 set there, dropped it off, went straight to dumbbells on an incline, much better. And it kind of keeps it fun as well. Like, I mean, we used to do some crazy stuff like squat for 2 minutes straight with like 100 kilos, 100 rep deadlift, stuff like that. That's the type of training I love.
See, like I've always been more of the structured logbook, um, get more reps, more weight. Like
Yeah,
when I did do the high intensity approach, it was just literally getting one more rep each week, keeping most exercises the same, just rinsing, repeating until you're getting nothing out of it. But then again, I think it comes down to as well genes and genetics. So, like you mentioned, Flex Wheeler, he's got superb genetics where no matter what he does, he's probably going to get results.
yeah,
For someone who's not really a big responder to weight training, then potentially you've got to be a bit more meticulous with your methods and things like that. That's my opinion, anyway.
yeah. The way I kind of look at it is, I mean, the way I've kind of always looked at it, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
All training methods can result in an amazing physique. There's no, I mean, I always say this, and I mean, I know, like, obviously Jordan Peters has kind of set the precedent for the kind of push-pull legs. That's what he's associated with. But I've always gone by, there's no single best training method.
Yeah.
I mean, there's counter arguments on all sides. I mean, you know, you can say push-pull legs is the best, and then, you know, someone will just say, how many Mr. Olympias have trained push-pull legs? And, you know, the answer's none. So it all really depends on, you know, what suits each person. I mean, for me personally, I know I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia, so I'd rather kind of go by instinct and enjoy my training a bit more. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I've read. Have you heard of 3DMG?
What was?
Helms.
Oh yeah.
Eric Helms. He wrote a book on training, and he had it like layers. So you have like a pyramid. So the bottom layer has got to be adherence. It doesn't matter what rep ranges, what intensities, what volumes, what split you're doing. If it's perfect as a plan, but you can't stick to that for the next year consistently, then it's not the right one for you. So like saying you must train 6 days a week doesn't make sense if someone can only get to the gym 2, 3, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Yes, you potentially might lose 10 to 15% of results, but that's losing less compared to if you went to the gym 6 days a week for 2 weeks and didn't go back for 6 weeks because you couldn't.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, everybody has a certain way that works for them. I mean, Mike Mentzer, who I used to love, he was known for heavy duty training. Towards kind of the end of his career, he was experimenting with training once every 21 days, which is mad to think about. I mean, because obviously everyone pushes, you know, lower volume, high frequency, but he did lower volume and low frequency. So, and, you know, it didn't do him any bad. So I do think it all depends on the individual.
Yeah, and as well, I think it just, for me, it depends on who you train with, who you're around, who you're influenced by. Like for me, I did train to failure a lot, especially the last 2 years, and I found that I was just constantly beat up.
Yeah.
I had a quad niggle where I couldn't train legs for 2 weeks. And then at the same time, I think going into the big subject of today's podcast as well, potentially training with MCP, if you're only doing 2 sets and the contractions aren't 100% there, then you're potentially losing out on volume because although you're doing, say, 2 sets of 10, that's 20 reps. The average person will get at least 18 or 19 of those reps on point, whereas we only get 10, so we are losing out on 8 or 9 reps. That was what I was told by one of my first prep coaches anyway.
I mean, the way, it's a good question actually, training with CP. The main kind of thing that I've always, like when I've prepped one guy to compete, we had another one in prep who, well, the show got cancelled in June, so that was a shame. But you know, I've worked with probably about 3 or 4 guys, and the one thing I always say to them is, I never write down what exercises for them to do initially. I always say to them, right, what exercises do you feel the most? I'll give them suggestions and I'll get them to try it. But if they don't like it and they don't feel it, scrap it off. I'm a big believer in, you know, you have to feel it to, I mean, I'm very big on muscle-mind connection. It's one of the main reasons why I don't do certain exercises, because I won't get much of a feeling out of them.
Yeah.
So I'll give an example. So I had one guy, and for triceps, the best movement for him was, you know, on the dip machine where
Yeah.
you've got the pad.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, most of our tricep workouts consisted with that exercise, varying in reps. And what I like to do as well, again, is time under tension.
Yeah.
I think with CP, I think it's brilliant. Just especially on a certain extent. I mean, obviously, it depends on the extent to which the person's affected. But I mean, I've always, especially kind of for legs as well, because I don't like. I mean, I'm very big on form as well. Like I don't.
Yeah, I mean, just to the into that, I see a lot of people with CP who train, who will do an exercise because people always bang on about it being say a squat.
Yeah.
They maybe put a bar on in the back, but it's a half squat. Instead, finding going onto a leg press or a hack squat where you can get full range of motion, you can get deep in the hole, as they say, then you're going to get more. Like, I'm a big fan of full range of motion. Like, I think not doing full range, then you're leaving 10 or 15% of gains on the end table. In some cases, things like that pull down, if you're not getting that stretch, what's the point? You're not actually really doing
Yeah, I mean, likewise, I do see a lot of people with CP, the way they train, they put a bit of an extra emphasis on weight, and the form is a bit shoddy, really. I mean, especially like you said with squats. Squats is a prime example. But I mean, I'd look at it. I'd rather see someone lift a fifth of that weight but get the full range of motion.
Well,
partials have their place, but you can't do it for. I mean, not just that, but the actual effects on your CNS, your body, kind of overloading, but not doing the full range of motion. You know, it's probably worse on your joints.
Well, that's it. I mean, I will say that CP is linked to the CNS, so that CNS is working not at full range anyway.
Yeah.
And then you're going to battle that even more. What's the point? You're not going to be able to recover.
Yeah, I mean, even things like cardio, conscious sport cardio, because I'm quite big on cardio, close to a show. And obviously, I mean, I don't know how this affects you personally, but I've had quite a few guys towards the end, they struggle with it a bit. They find it a bit hard on their legs as well. So we'd always kind of use the bike, you know, the recumbent bike, the one you kind of sit on. As we found that was kind of the least pressure.
I mean, for me, my first prep, my coach was pretty old school, so it was cardio. Most of that though, instead of going to the gym twice a day, I'd go just go for a walk.
Yeah.
But that, because I only had 16 weeks, I didn't get fully peeled. It was all because I did a show before that where the coach was crazy and had his gaining from 16 weeks out, and it was anyway, that's a whole new story. So this was like May, June time, so it was looking for September. There wasn't really going to be any other shows after that, so I only had 16 weeks. So my calories started at like 2,000 on the first week, so they weren't in the highest place anyway. So my list got up to 1.5 hours in the last week, every single day. So I question, if I had given myself longer, would my legs have looked better? Because at the end, my legs had no definition really, potentially a lack of muscle anyway. But then you could say, was it just a constant this?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the constant cardio, especially as a natural, it does take out your legs a bit. For me, I've always kind of preferred the cardio that's the least kind of stressful.
Yeah.
So the recumbent bike or incline walking. I do like the Stairmaster.
I
I
like
wouldn't
the
do it though.
track neat now instead, steps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
So it's just I'd say it's potentially less impacted even than this because you're not having to go at a decent pace. Well, it helps by going at an decent pace for time wise because it can be quite time consuming.
Yeah.
But even then, I've heard of athletes who even haven't got CP when they push their steps up to 15k, 20k, their legs just are beat up and they can't bring it back.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, especially when you're natural as well, there is a thing as doing too much.
It's getting that right balance.
It's very hard because obviously with yourself, you're always going to push yourself more. I mean, even when like I'm better at prepping others than I am prepping myself
Yeah.
because with others, I can look back on my mistakes. And I mean, for me personally, I mean, a couple of preps I'd go without cheat meals or and what I used to do as well, I always used to experiment before each show, and I used to have a different look for every show. So like I've got pictures of me where I did a show where I look really full, but holding loads of water.
Yeah.
And then I've got another show where I look flat, but kind of much more serrated and drier. And then I've got kind of shows where I'm a bit of both. Because before every show, I'd always experiment with a different carb up, a different drug protocol, so I can see what works best for me.
So were those athletes that you coached with MCP all natural or was some enhanced or?
All were natural except from one. The guy in question is actually quite interesting because I didn't actually want him to start gear.
I think I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I'm not mentioning the name, but I know who you are.
Well, yeah, initially I didn't want him to take gear. The reason being, because obviously, not like just the CP thing, but obviously more kind of steroids aren't great for mental health either.
Yeah.
And that's what I was worried about. And obviously they can, like I said, they can become addictive.
They had troubles as
Uh,
well with that sort of thing as well, didn't they? Before that.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't too keen on it initially, but I mean, it's a horrible position to be put in as a coach because you know that if someone wants to do something, they'll do it. I mean, for example, I always used to say this with like my brother and steroids. I said to him, if you ever want to start steroids, I don't want you to do it, but if you do, come to me because at least that way you're getting, I can
Well,
advise you.
I mean, you could have said no, and then they go to a different coach who gives them an absolute crazy amount of stuff to take.
Well, yeah, because I heard, oh gosh, well, funnily enough, when he was kind of interested in steroids, he spoke to a guy, and I remember getting a message about it because the guy told him to inject in his chest, like obviously inject steroids in the chest, and I was like, no, don't do that.
I mean, even I'm not going to proclaim to be the expert on that sort of stuff, but even I know that that's just.
Yeah, no, I'll give you an example. Like, there's a woman who, kind of sponsored by a steroid lab. No surprise there. It was a shit lab as well. She told him to take Tren, and I was there. Like, he's just started Anavar, which is
Yeah.
the weakest kind of steroid. Well, it's not the weakest as such, but it's a very mild steroid. And literally, like, tell him to go on Tren and stuff. It's what's kind of wrong with the whole thing. But I mean, the thing with CP is that obviously, I mean, I don't know if you found this, but I find when people with CP get a bit heavier, it can make it harder.
Yeah, like that's also one thing I'm questioning myself at the minute because I worked with Jack Richardson last year. I don't know if you know Jack.
Yeah.
He coached, like I've worked with him 2 or 3 times, and he's a big believer in pushing weight high in the off season because, especially as a young natural like he was, he pushed his weight high and gained it up. and I'm questioning for someone like myself whether the benefit you get out of that is worth it.
Yeah, for natural athletes, I do like that approach. But although what I kind of say with mine, I mean, I don't like them to get too heavy. I know it sounds strange, I actually prefer guys on gear to get a bit heavier. The reason being because, I mean, as it's all whether you deem it worth it. Because obviously, as a natural athlete, you're limited in the amount of muscle you can gain per year. Like, you're never going to gain 30 pounds of muscle in a year as a natural.
Yeah.
Unless you've got Ronnie Coleman genetics.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mean, with kind of my guys who had CP, I always wanted to keep them pretty lean, under 14% body fat, which isn't high at all really. And the reason being is because it's less stress on the body.
Well, that's it. I mean, I don't know what my percentage was, but I can confidently say it was above 20 at least.
Yeah.
But then my strength was in all-time high. So it's like, was it worth it?
Yeah.
We'll see. In terms, I mean, I put a post on this yesterday, even rate of gain. Like they say, for naturals, 1% a month if you're well trained. And I'm thinking, if we are gaining muscle at a rate that isn't as quick, should we be putting on that amount of weight as fast?
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it as well. Because you need to be able to function good.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, it's quite I mean, same goes for steroids as well. So, for example, like the steroid Danabol makes me look good. It makes my strength go up, but I can't eat on it.
Yeah.
I struggle with eating on when I take orals, and I mean, it gets bad to the point where I struggle to get like 3 or 4 meals down a day. So I just don't take it. So obviously, I could take it and get a higher body weight, but I wouldn't be maximizing my growth, if that makes sense. Whereas, I mean, I get what you're saying about the whole staying lean. I'd never push up someone's weight with CP, personally. I mean, it all depends on the extent of how, because obviously everyone differs. But I'd always like to see them, like I said, sub 15, sub 14.
Yeah, I mean, because although I was 116 on stage, I was probably about 10 pounds off being completely in, I'd say. So
Yeah.
I arguably pushed up to 55 pounds above stage weight, let's say.
Yeah.
Which for some, that isn't a lot, but it's not in terms of the amount. But if you think about
your starting weight,
yeah, it's a good half of my weight up.
Yeah.
And like my calories now are as low as 1,700, and I'm at 145 I was today. So I'm still a good amount off my stage weight, and the calories are low. So I'm having to do a diet before I prep just to get in a good range to prep.
Yeah, I mean, another way to look at it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, another way to look at it as well, with kind of the excess weight as well. I always preferred my training about, I'd say, between 8 weeks out and 16 weeks out.
Yeah.
I never really enjoyed training at the peak of my off season, because I found that even though I always kept in cardio, because I like to train quite high reps, I always found like on leg press and things like that, I'd be, I'd be struggling, not struggling to breathe, but my CV would be gone before my actual muscles, and that can happen sometimes.
Well, that's again what I put. The first post I put in that series was about that, because you could say that for a CP athlete that is important, but at the same time, any little bit of CV work could then impact on your recovery. So it's such a fine line. There's not a generic yes or no answer. It's sort of very, very based on that person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and what I always found, speaking about, the differences in CP, because obviously in our show we have a disabled bodybuilding class, and I've actually got a question for you now because I'm obviously quite interested in it. So obviously there's kind of two different ways to judge a disability bodybuilding class.
Yeah.
So obviously the way how, for example, like PCA do it, how we kind of did it is like an overall, whoever looks the best on stage.
Yeah.
But obviously the issue with that is obviously all disabilities differ in kind of how demanding they are on the body, how hard it is to kind of bodybuild. Whereas I don't know if they still do, but Wabba used to do it on kind of how hard the disability was. So they take into account everybody's disability to kind of, I don't want to say, kind of level the playing field a bit. If you kind of,
my argument within that though would be that sometimes you can be marked down when you've got a good physique because you're more able.
yeah,
I mean, I played wheelchair basketball for 9 years. In all Paralympic sports, you're marked on like a classification system. They
yeah,
all work differently. Individual events like sprints, you'd be put in a group with someone with kind of the same as you.
yeah,
However, in bodybuilding alone, there's not a lot of MP people who compete. Then when you look at our class, I mean, you're lucky to get 2 on stage at a local show. So to then have that in place, it would just be nonsense. It just wouldn't work. So it's a bit of a tricky one because then at the same time that if you have someone who's quite severely impaired,
yeah,
and someone who is, say, off the top of my head, say Paul Betts, who won the PCA a couple of years ago, amputee for those who don't know him, it's so hard to compare. No matter what you put in place, it's so hard to compare. Maybe breaking it down into, not in terms of the exact condition. So, for instance, say CP or neuro. I know that's what CrossFit do. So your condition's affected by your brain, let's say. You're in one class, you have seated, standing. So that's a bit more of a generic, but it's still avoiding comparing an amputee to someone in a wheelchair, say.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's a very, very grey line because then the amount of compete isn't a lot. And then at the same time, like as I mentioned, I'm a big believer in not getting on stage every year and looking the same.
yeah.
But for our classes, there's a pressure on us to do as many shows as possible to get the class out there.
Yeah, because I mean, it's similar. It's quite similar to female bodybuilding in a few ways because obviously, for example, like for our show this year that was going to happen in June, we had 4 guys signed up, and the previous year we only had 1 competitor. Obviously, my kind of view on it is I'll always run the class because even if it's one person, they're showing off their hard work. But yeah, we had 4 people signed up, and obviously they've been transferred over to the November show now. But I think it'll be on the rise. But I get what you're saying, like, because I always wondered, like the view on how it should be judged, because obviously it's very easy for us to just say, you know, do this, do
I
that.
mean, there's even more of, if you had an untested show like yours, like the PCA, naturals and enhanced athletes in general, there is a difference, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can look at someone and think, wow, are they natural?
Yeah.
And in our class, there's a massive difference between an enhanced athlete and a natural athlete as well. So
Oh, yeah.
so that makes it even more of a wider range.
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you mean completely.
But then, unfortunately, the natural tested federations don't really have our class. It's only the NPA that I know of. And because of the PCA having our class at every show pretty much, even the natural athletes tend to choose PCA.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I mean, I do think that all federations should kind of offer it as a show. I mean, same with female bodybuilding as well, because there are, you know, disability competitors out there. There's female bodybuilders out there who all want to compete.
There's one who's an IFBB pro, I think, from France.
So what was it?
IFBB pro from France with one leg. Can't
Yeah,
remember his name, but huge
yeah,
guy.
I know the one you're on about. Yeah, I can't think
Guy
of his name.
from India, I can't remember his name as well, did Body Power in 2017. Huge.
I mean, I
One
mean,
small leg, the rest was just a balloon.
I mean, you look at like Paul Betts. I mean, he'd do well in the open classes. You know, well, he has done well in the open classes. And there used to be a bodybuilder I knew in the 90s called Ricky Welling, if you've heard of him.
Mm, oh,
He was blind, so he's completely blind, and he actually competed in pro shows. So he won his pro card and he competed on pro shows, you know, against guys like Ronnie Coleman and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
Kevin Levrone. Really, really cool story.
I think I heard about him on the Size Game podcast, you know, with James Hollinshead and Luke Sando. James was talking about this, was like 2-3 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it was like I did PCA Manchester in 2017, and the guy that I was up against had recovered from cancer.
Yeah.
But he used to compete 10 years before that. So massive guy. Like he would have done well in the whole show.
Yeah.
Never mind in. So possibly a controversial subject, but then judging someone saying, could they compete in a able body class? And if they could, then they compete in that class instead.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're
Maybe
saying.
some people out there listening to this will call me every name under the sun there, but like I just think that yes, like an amputee, let's say, has got one leg, but when you look at their physique as an overall, it's still more proportion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in our show, we allow multiple category entry. So, for example, like last year, we had a guy do disability and do tattooed like muscle model. And I mean, this year we had a couple of the guys who were doing the disability category one guy did the junior bodybuilding, and another one was doing physique.
Yeah.
So I think that's good as well to kind of, you know, do you know what I mean? Kind of try other classes as well, and you know, see how they compare. And
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, there's no right or wrong art. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just a very grey area.
yeah,
But then you get it in every single class. You get people doing the class when they should be. Look at men's physique, classic physique.
yeah,
I mean, how many people doing that are actually classic?
yeah, that's true.
It's a whole new subject.
Yeah, that's don't get me started on classic.
I know the natural shows don't have that class because they say as a natural, you should be classic, or you should be pretty much the
Yeah, I agree with that mostly.
yeah, is suited
But
to
yeah, I mean, the problem with classic nowadays, people think, you know, if they can do a vacuum, they're a classic bodybuilder. When it's so much more than just, you know, the abs, it's about the flow. Or a lot of people,
yeah.
I'm too small to be a bodybuilder, so I'll do classic.
So
That's the
have
common one.
you? I know that you do coaching for pausing as well. Have you done any work with athletes for CP who you've prepped for pausing? Have you noticed any
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
movements? Or?
I used to do it weekly last year. As you can imagine, you know, there are some challenges with that.
Yeah, never going to be perfect, but
Yeah. So what I kind of do is the pose. Obviously, the mandatory poses, for example, like front double bicep, front lat spread. You can still hit them, but just kind of have your own twist on them. So, for example, like, you know, if you can't get the full range of motion, for example, on the side tricep, bringing the arm back.
yeah,
There's different kind of alternative methods where you can show off your triceps. And I mean, the good thing with kind of like posing, as far as like disability goes, the judges are quite open to, you know, they don't have to be bang on, which is, you know, quite handy. But there are certain ways to obviously, you know, show off body parts that necessarily you wouldn't have the motion to be able to do.
I think the main pauses that I've seen from CP athletes where is probably the most noticeable difference is the lat spreads, even myself as well. My lat spread has drastically improved over the last 2 or 3 years. Whether it's down to pausing or whether it's down to actually just getting more muscle in the back, I don't know. But like, it's a pause where I don't see many people actually having a V taper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, things like, you know, stretching can help flexibility. Obviously, you know, building more muscle in general, that's the main one. But it is, I mean, you look at it, the amount of people who are able-bodied who struggle with posing is unreal, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's just practice as well, you know. Seeing someone who kind of can help you out, like team it for you, and just practice.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like, I can remember so many days on prep where I'd go over things again, 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 still not be happy, and probably stop that day not being happy, but days and days and days it would then get better.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I had a bit of a time away at the beginning of the year where I wasn't going to compete, and I was doing all the things, and I wasn't really posing. Then when I started posing again, it was like, wow, my posing has just got so much worse. I think it's something that you need to be keeping on top of, especially even more as a CP athlete.
Yeah.
In your off season, not just like 2-3 weeks before a show, especially your routine as well. Maybe even starting to learn a routine before you start prep.
Yeah, like I always posing. I always like people to start from 12 weeks out. That's kind of my minimum. And gradually increase it. It's easier to kind of start posing later on than I mean, as you can imagine, you know, close to the show, you're tired, your body's drained, so it's a lot harder to practice posing.
I think sometimes as well, especially posing in trunks, it can be, you can then overlook your physique as well, especially if you are coaching yourself.
Yeah.
It's so easy to think, well, actually, am I shredded, or do I need to pull this off this, or I'm looking too small, or I'm looking flat.
Yeah, that's it. It's easy. I mean, guys people will either go either way. They'll think they're better than they are or worse than they are.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the last sort of thing to touch on, because being on it while now, in terms of nutrition, sort of what's your general approach in nutrition, and have you noticed any differences with MCP?
So there's not too personally, I don't notice too many differences compared to, like, you know, the able body clients. The only thing kind of, I mean, it all depends on the individual, really. Because
in terms of your general approach, how do you normally approach nutrition with
so my general approach is always like quite a high protein. Carbs, obviously, you can imagine on rest days, less, training days more. In the off season, I like to prime people, so I like to get their metabolism up, get them eating more. So when we start prep, we're at a really good place. And then with prep, I like to do things very gradually. So, for example, like I might take out 30 grams of carbs, 40 grams of carbs, increase cardio by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just gradually bring it down. Because I'm not big on the fat burning drugs. I'm not like a big pusher of Clen or T3.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an idea. So T3 is like the thyroid drug. I had a guy who came third in the PCA Classic finals last year. We only started T3 3 weeks out from his last show, the finals. Yeah. So throughout all the other qualifiers, he didn't use it.
Yeah.
And that kind of, you know, shows you I'm more kind of diet based. As far as like refeeds go and stuff like that, refeeds in prep, I like them kind of well, it depends on the athlete. Sometimes it can be once a week, sometimes it can be once every 2 weeks. I think cheat meals have their place as well, but in the off season, I'm very relaxed. Like I always say to my clients, you know, you're gonna have a basic understanding on nutrition, so you know that, for example, if you've got probably like 50 grams of fat left in your meals for the day, and let's say you've got, you know, 150 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, you know that, let's say, you know, you're going shopping with the missus, you want to go Nando's, you can do that. But just be sensible later on in the evening and think, you know what, because I've had the extra fat from the Nando's, I'll take out a bit of fat from this or that.
So do you give macros to your clients, or do you give meal plans, or is it a bit of both?
I like meal plans. The reason I like meal plans is because although all the meal plans are done by macros, so I always do them by a certain amount of macros. But I prefer clean eating because most of my clients are obviously assisted. I'm not a big fan of the kind of if it fits your macros approach, because although, like I gave the examples about, you know, going to a meal and stuff, it's still pretty clean. Like I remember one girl. Oh, sorry. How do we go back? There we go. A notification popped up. Yeah, so I had I had a girl, and I remember she had 30 grams of carbs, and this was when I was, you know, younger and I used to do macros. And, you know, I was talking to her, she goes, "Oh, I had jelly babies." And I was like, "Oh, okay, jelly babies and chicken." So, I mean, that's why.
See, like, that would be where I am more for flexible nutrition and if it's a macros, but not to that extent. Like, I'll admit, when I first got into it, you do take the piss as much as you can, and you do, right, I've got these macros, let's see what I can fit in. But I think you grow out of that, you get bored of that, then you realize that to an extent the whole foods keep you fuller, especially in diet. So like for me now, when my calories are on 1700, although I don't have a meal plan, I kind of have the same structure. I might change different food sources once in a while, but I might change chicken or beef or whatever, but it's pretty much the same. Just the amount can change depending on.
Yeah, because I mean, I kind of going on from that, I always like to with the like kind of, so if you imagine if it's your macros, you're only getting you hit your macros. Well, I'm quite big on things like the amount of potassium everything to get daily, hydration, sodium. So I kind of like to put like a set meal plan for most of my clients. So, you know, I'm a big user of like low fat cottage cheese for calcium, avocado for potassium, things like that.
I think
pink Himalayan salt.
that might be even, maybe I'm wrong, but that might be even more important for the enhanced athlete as well, who needs to be more focused on health.
Because you imagine, like we said about health supplements as well. If you're on gear, you're going to have to take more health supplements.
Yeah.
So when I was at my peak, this is obviously, bodybuilders will spend a lot on drugs, but on my kind of last cycle, because I'm quite a hypochondriac about my health. I'm very health cautious.
Surprising, really, when you think about.
Yeah, I mean, literally, when I was younger, I didn't really,
We went down.
But now I'm very cautious about it. Because obviously, I mean, I want to live long. I want kids, grandkids. So I was probably spending more per week on health supplements and vitamins than I was on anabolics in my last kind of cycle. Whereas previously in the past, if I had, let's say I had £1,000 to spend, the first thing I'd buy would be, my cycle.
Yeah. I mean, like, when you were on about off-season being more relaxed as well, there's all like track macros, the range will be quite narrow in a prep. But then in an off-season, I don't really have things like cheat meals, because I find that, like, it's easy to binge, and then that's where I've gained weight pretty quickly. But by having, say, plus or minus 20, eyeballing sometimes a meal out, estimating it, it's kind of getting the best of both worlds, where not over restricting yourself, but still not taking.
Yeah, because I remember when I used to be a big fan of growth hormone, and I could eat, and I'd never really put on much fat. Whereas now, obviously, I've had time off. I have to be a bit careful, a bit more careful with kind of how relaxed I am. But I mean, it's possible. Like, for example, like yesterday, I had to travel to Stoke, so I was in a bit of a rush. Now, obviously, I knew that 3 whole eggs, you're looking at about 12 grams of fat. You got turkey, thigh mince. These things I normally eat on a day-to-day basis. But in the morning, I had chicken selects from McDonald's, and I knew that how much fat was in them, and I just took it out of my diet later. So, I mean, that's kind of if feature macros I prefer in the off season.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny as well. Just thinking back, I had a meal plan for my first prep, but my coach would put the macros at the bottom, but it was only the whole macros, so not including trace.
Yeah.
But at the time, I knew nothing about that, and I'm thinking, like, I'm putting the meal plan into my fitness plan. This doesn't add up, So I was actually eating less than I was told, because it didn't. I was eating the same food, but I was reducing the amount I was eating just to fit the
macro,
macros. I mean, that is one approach that I've tried, but again, I find that if I'm too restrictive, that I just don't enjoy the diet. So I like having a little bit of leeway here or there, even on a diet, and maybe once in a while have a tub of Halo top ice cream or something like that, without taking the piss to the extent of literally eating 6 tubs a day and that's it. But it's so hard to get that balance, and I think when I'm on prep next year towards the end, I know that who I'm coached by normally kind of, the closer it gets, the more rigid structured meal plan, particularly for salt and sodium. And then as well, I find as you deep into a diet, the decision fatigue of what you put in today to fit my macros, you'll just get that stressed. You'll just end up holding water. So it's getting
another thing I like as well, especially really in the off season, is fasting. So I'm not keen on it, like all the time, or I think just for 20 hours, once a month or once every 6 weeks, brilliant way of just, kind of helping your digestion system, good for fat loss as well. So I've been implementing that for the past kind of like 2 years with clients as well, especially kind of before you start prep. I find it because obviously you can imagine, you know, the amount of food you eat off season. It's good to have a bit of a break.
Yeah. So in terms of nutrition for CTE athletes, you said that you didn't think there's much difference. Do you think potentially maybe pushing protein higher might help in terms of calorie or carbohydrates for fuel? Potentially.
So I know it sounds strange, but I kind of like for recovery, like things like Epsom bath salts, things like that can help. Stretching as well. But I also, I mean, it's hard to help because I'm a high protein advocate, so all my clients have high protein.
High protein, how high are you talking?
So minimum 200, well, minimum 250 grams.
Is that no matter what their weight, or do you
usually, because I always like to have protein. Obviously it's different, you know, with bikini girls and stuff. So for example, when I was kind of at my biggest, I was probably on about 350 grams a day. Now I'm kind of having time off. I'm on about 300 to 280. But the majority of my clients are about male clients are over 250, and that includes physique guys as well.
Is that including trace protein?
So trace protein comes on top. So we're probably talking an extra 20 grams. Probably.
For me, I've always went 1 gram per pound of body weight. So for me, you're talking 150. But then if carbs are high, obviously it includes trace, so then I'd push them up a little bit. So for every 100 gram of carbs, I'd increase my protein by say 10 grams just to that. So then you know you're getting a good amount of whole proteins in, because you don't want to be like, I've noticed like tracking macros, bloody bagel for instance has 10 grams of protein, but you're thinking, is that the same as 10 grams from chicken?
Yeah, I mean it's like vegetables, like obviously the carbs in like things like broccoli and stuff. I've never really counted them, because I mean even with prep I'm quite unusual because I mean I'm not sure like how your previous coaches have done it. Scales, like I know this sounds really weird. I really don't care about my clients' weight on the scales.
See, I'm more of the taking the weekly average.
See, with me, it's more. I mean, scales. I find scales brilliant for everyday people, but for me, because obviously, you know, like running a bodybuilding, you know, like federation as well. I know that the most important thing is how they look. So,
I think for me, I put a post on this the other week actually. So a lot of, especially PTs, even that I work with, are against overusing the scale, which I get. Especially for someone brand new to the gym, you can gain muscle, you can lose fat at the same time. Even for potentially yourself enhanced, you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time.
Yeah.
But for an advanced natural athlete, to lose fat, you have to lose weight. To gain muscle, you have to gain weight.
Yeah.
So if your scale weight isn't dropping, chances are you're not really losing fat. However, I wouldn't, if the average 1 week stalled, I wouldn't just suddenly make a change. I'd look more in depth what was going on, maybe give it another week, another 2 weeks, look at the physique as well. I kind of think that it's like a scale. The heavier you are, the less pictures are important and the more scales are important.
Yeah.
So for instance, at the minute the coach I'm working with, I only take pictures once a month.
Yeah.
So my training blocks last a month. So at the end of each block, I'll take pictures. But then in prep, towards the end, it'll be weekly.
Yeah.
So scale weight for me at the minute is more important, because in the middle, you're not really going to see much change when body fat's so high, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you're 6 weeks out, weight might not drop, but you might be a hell of a lot leaner.
Yeah, because I mean, the way I work during prep and during the off season, so I'm a big advocate of time off completely.
Yeah.
time off steroids, none of this cruising, bullshit. Just
Yeah.
completely off. Let your receptors heal again. And then what I like to do with prep, I like to grow people into shows. So, I mean, for example, like one of my clients from 16 weeks out, he was the same weight at 16 weeks out as he was at 7 weeks out. He'd
Is
literally
that just for enhanced or is that
enhanced always, yeah.
because you can't really do that naturally, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no way. Because that's what I tend to do. It's like I've got two guys now who, one's in prep now, the other's off season, and literally like every week they look different. I love it.
It's like as well, like going a little bit off subject. It's like when I hear natural say post show and rebounding, I'm thinking there's no such thing. Like is it natural? There's no chance you're going to be able to gain muscle 2 weeks post show.
Yeah, so how it normally works is it's more kind of because people tend to eat more obviously after a show.
Yeah,
it's about the muscles just getting filled with glycogen, and
I think you might retain some lost muscle.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong,
yeah.
But you're not going to gain new muscle. Is a natural.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, when you're enhanced, obviously you can, but when you're as a natural, yeah.
But then there's more theories coming out now about not rebounding post show eating as an enhanced for health.
So, well, I do think quite interesting. So what I do is, so let's say client A is on a gram a week, 1,000 grams a week, and he's prepped for 12 weeks, did well at his show. Now he wants to rebound. The rebound, I'd give him 4 to 6 weeks. And what I do is I gradually increase his food.
Yeah.
But obviously give him like a cheat meal maybe twice a week, so obviously he can enjoy after the show. But I cut his dose down, so obviously we stop all the fat burners. So he'd go from, let's say, a gram to 500 or 300. So you're taking probably 2/3 less, but you're getting the results because you're reintroducing food back in.
Yeah.
And I normally also get them to train a different style. So post-show, obviously your body can be a bit beat down sometimes. So I prefer time and attention, higher reps, and I don't like training overly to failure post-show.
Yeah, I mean, like, so have you heard of RP coaching, Dr. Mike?
No, I don't.
So, like, their whole concept is in general training, you push volume over 4 weeks. It's quite method. Like, it's like you start at, like, say 4 reps in reserve this week. By the 4th week, you're training to failure, but you're doing like 20 sets per muscle group.
Yeah.
So you're pretty fatigued then, so then you deload. So it's like pretty short but intense.
Yeah.
But their whole concept as well is that after a while you adapt that high volume. So they do what they call a low volume phase. So it's called a primer phase, where you go back to low volume for 8 weeks, say a month, at the same time as you maintain on calories, because there's no point being in a surplus if you're not actually doing enough training to gain muscle. But they also use that post show, so they go straight to maintenance for 8 weeks, say, recover, but you're also doing low end volume, and then you recover to push volume.
Yeah.
I mean, different things work.
Yeah, so that's where I look at it. It's just over time as well. You kind of know what works for you and what doesn't. And
I think I'm guessing you would have heard of Lee Norton.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
His approach of reversing out of the show, I think, is not really used so much these days because you're not gaining weight quick enough to recover.
Yeah, he does it a bit too slow, in my opinion.
Especially for naturals and hormones and food for like your relationship with food is just in the gutters by the end of the prep.
Yeah, I like to do a jump, but nothing overly crazy, and then just eat each week, increase it up. But yeah,
I think I've heard gaining like 10% of your weight post-show in the first 6 weeks, and you should sort of start.
if you're on anabolics, it can be anywhere up to like 20, 30.
Yeah.
From the actual day you're on stage, because obviously, you know, like water retention and diuretics and things like that. Because I remember the most I've ever put on post show, I think I got about 35 pounds.
Was
Obviously, a
that
lot
in
of
a week or was that in a month? Or?
oh, not a week, a month. I think the most I put on in my natural show in 2 weeks, after when I was 16, after I did that, in 2 weeks I put on, I think it was 1.5 stone. So that's about 18 pounds, is it? 19?
Yeah. See, I was only about 6 weeks and post-show, 6 to 8 weeks. I was only about 8 or 10 pounds above.
Yeah.
And that was going pretty deep on cheat meals. So like it wasn't really a meal; it was more like a binge.
Yeah.
But then like so I was in the 120 for a while, and all of a sudden I just jumped an extra 10 pounds like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's the thing that with cheat meals, it's so inconsistent sometimes that you might gain a lot of weight one week, and that's because you just went absolutely
Yeah.
balls deep in a pizza. So I've got one question on Instagram, which I think we've covered anyway. I'll just get it up, then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, man.
It was from Josh Goodfellow. How did Sam brackets brackets legend, by the way, have to adapt his coaching style to work with people with CP, particularly from a training and understanding perspective? I think we've covered pretty much.
Yeah, so just kind of to round that off, it's just about obviously you've got a communications kit, main thing. With the understanding as well, it's just, you know, because I mean, one of the guys I work with, he worked with someone previously, and you know, the coach would get frustrated because he doesn't want to, you know, change the exercises. But you got to be willing to do that. You got to have flexibility, and you've got to put it into perspective as well, because you can't, like I said, with training wise, you can't treat someone with CP exactly the same as someone who's, you know, like able bodied, because it can cause injuries. It could, that people progress differently. So you just got to have that patience as well.
So one last question from me, while I've just quickly thought of that. In terms of length of prep and cutting, would you say going more conservative is better, or?
Yeah, so it all depends on the individual. If the individual loses body fat quick, I always kind of start it about 16 weeks out.
Yeah.
If they're very heavy and they don't lose it quick, it can be. I don't like to prep anyone more than 20 weeks. I think 22
in
weeks.
terms of CP, even though I was meaning like.
Oh, in terms of CP, again, it depends on the individual, and kind of how much weight they've got. But I like about 16 to 18 weeks.
Yeah.
But just again, it all depends on their metabolism, how much they're eating to start with. It could be a bit more, but ideally 16 to 18 weeks is how I like it.
Yeah, and just to finish things off, where can the viewers find you if they want to look up on Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, so my Instagram, my personal one is @Barbarian Training. Our show, which, you know, runs twice a year, maybe more next year, is @Barbarian Classic, and we're on Facebook as well.
Cool. And thanks for coming on.
Wicked, man. No worries. Enjoyed it.